Hey everyone, it's Josh with J Vintage Honda Minis in Orlando, Florida. We're looking at a TRX70 Recoil Pullstart. I have some videos on the ATC70 Pullstart to rebuild it, but this is a little bit different internally, so we'll do a video on this one. I'm doing an engine rebuild for TRX70. This is part of it, so I'm actually going to refurbish and repaint and tear down this to put a new rope and new spring in it. But I'll show you the replacement parts process. So first step, we're going to want to get this rope released from the actual handle. So we'll use a little flathead screwdriver, if you still have this, to pull the cap off. Then we can get to the rope, and we're going to want to pull the rope loose, undo the knot, or if you need to, cut the knot, or if your rope is broken, you don't need to do this step. So we'll use a little jeweler's flathead and push it in there really good to get behind this cover here. This might be pretty brittle, this part. So next step, let's start taking it apart. 10 millimeters, this is how it works. You pull the rope, and then it's got the, what should I call it, a ratchet hand that pops out. See how it comes out? So that's what grabs your flywheel cage and turns your crank. What we're doing is we're taking the friction plate off. There's a little spring on the back that orients itself with a stud on this friction arm. So that spring that's on here sits on top of this nub right here. So at this stage we'll just release our vice grip here. Just hold on to your rope and then let it slowly retract so it doesn't just pop out. And then you got your coil spring in here, so let it release as much tension as possible, and then we're going to gently just lift this out. Just be careful that this doesn't pop out and the spring doesn't jump out at you. So I'll just pull this arm. There's a little washer. And then what I'll do is I'm actually going to turn it upside down and just kind of see if I can't get it to. There you go. So there's our coil in there. You got to be careful with that jumping out. And we got our wheel here that you wrap your cord around. So just be careful with this spring. And then I'm actually going to take it a little bit further here before I re-rope it and put a new spring in. I'm going to blast this down, work on this plastic a little bit, do some wet sanding, see if I can get some of these scratches out. If you're going to refurbish yours, just be careful, because I can already see on this one that there's a little bit of metal behind this plastic. So don't sand it down too much or you'll go down to the metal base plate casting that this rubber is over. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this first, get it painted, and then I'll work on getting that. I'll show you guys how to put the rope and spring back together. Alright, so I cleaned the spool up here, just used some Dawn water and kind of pulled off all the old grease. You can do that if you want or not, but I'll put some fresh grease on it. I'm going to get the new cord in place. I just got the Honda cord. If you want to go, I would recommend going up if you have a professional mower shop in your area. They have high quality cord there. You probably can get something very similar to what you need and of high quality too. Then, like I said, I refurbished this cover, did some wet sanding and kind of smoothed out some of the scratches, and then I put a nice coat of the Honda Cloud Silver paint. So everything's nice and clean. good starting point to rebuild from. I'll put a decal back on there for the shift pattern once I'm done with everything. And then I got a new spring. This is discontinued from Honda, so this is a spring actually off of eBay. A couple different sellers, but I'll use the one that I got from eBay. And then I'll get everything reassembled. Here, looking at recording, you look at it with it orientated that way, and the cord gets wrapped clockwise. Actually, if yours comes out easy, if not, mine was a little stuck in there. I just used the actual pick, a little pick tool, to go ahead and reach in there, get in underneath the fiber of the rope and pull up. But just be gentle, because this stuff can be brittle from age. So we're just going to go ahead and pull all our line out. So we'll go ahead and we'll get our new cord in. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, well, instead of trying to feed it, it's a little difficult to get it to feed down into this hole and out. I'm going to go ahead and feed it from the outside in. And then we'll tie our knot. Just try to get that knot as close to the end with just a little bit of the cord sticking out. That way you don't have too much free cord left over sticking up. Spool. So go ahead and wind up your new cord. To do this, at least this spring that I got comes with a zip tie around it, so I just slowly pulled the zip tie up and held the spring and then let it expand slowly in my hand so it doesn't jump up. You can wear eyeglasses. I guess I would recommend for safety, just to make sure nothing pops up and hits you in your eye. Alright, so we'll start with the outer housing. It's where the rope comes through. We're going to hook onto the lip here with the outer of the part of the spring, and then slowly wrap it up very carefully, keeping pressure down to get it to seat. And then once we get it in there, we're not going to want to touch this thing at all to disturb it. I put it in a vise because it's going to need help to hold it, because it's going to want to spin on you as you're tightening the spring. The spring is going to want to fight you the whole time popping up, unfortunately, just from the angle of having to angle of entry for the spring. It's going to want to pop up. Alright, so the whole time this thing is just fighting you, because you got to come in obviously in a deep recessed area, so the spring is pointing up, and then that's just tweaking it all, trying to make it rip back up at you. So you got to constantly keep downward pressure on it and move from hand to hand as you create more clearance, room for you to keep wrapping this, but do not take your hand off of it, and but in two areas 180 degrees from each other. Keep pressure down 180 degrees from each other. That way you're keeping it seated and fighting against the want to flop up on you. I think once you get past the first initial few windings, it starts to flow a little better. That first couple turns is like the challenging part. You kind of see the flow of how my hands are working together. I'm going to release my left hand and come back down with my right, and then continue to turn it clockwise. And then I'm going to bring my left hand down, my thumb, to hold it, and just kind of keep methodically rotating your fingers. Hopefully I'm not blocking it, but I can't get a perfect angle on this thing when I'm working on it. Okay, so we're gonna want to leave it. Don't mess with it, okay? And then this is our chance to put our spool back in. This little teeny hole here on this part, I can use a little pick and it would go through. Okay, so if we look, this is really tightly bound, and this part of the hook on the spring is pressed up against the shaft here. So if we can put that hole, or use that hole in our pull rope assembly here, we can push this out just a little bit as we're sliding it down to give it room to slip into this area, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just put my tool in. I'm going to locate it inside of the hook. If you guys can see, I'm getting it in there, and then I'm going to be very gentle and press this down, and hopefully so I got it. It easily found itself, okay? You can test that by turning it, getting it tension. If it returns, you're in place. So our next step, we'll put some. We're gonna preload this, okay? So we got a little bit of tension, but we want a lot, so retract's good for us. So our rope hole is right about here. I'm gonna do it 2 complete rotations, okay, to build that preload. Then send my pull rope through its feed hole, and then clamp the rope with this to help it. You know, we don't want it pulling back on us, so I'll clamp it right next to the hole on this. Okay. So actually, I got to get this out of my vise, and then we'll do that. Instead of twisting it with your hand, it's going to be easier if you just grab this rope with your hand, let it, so you can keep track of how many times. So that's baseline, okay? There's the hole. I'm going to pull the rope so that I get 2 rotations. 1, now 2. Alright, so that's where I'm going to take my vice grips right over here and clamp down on my rope so that it stays. Alright, and then just make sure that doesn't come up. Mine was starting to pop up a little bit. And then I'm going to finish with assembling. You can recollect your ratchet part, your cap for your ratchet area, your bolt, and your washer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get that assembled back into here. I'm just going to put a little grease down in here where the nub of the ratchet goes. And a little bit on this area, just it's all area that has a little bit of friction, so I'm going to just kind of put a little grease in here. And then just kind of smear it. Okay. And then remember these two little leads here need to fall in place on this pen. So we're going to drop that down. Alright, and then you get your washer. And then your bolt. So we'll retorque that down. It's an M6 bolt, so typically M6 bolts are, 8 to 9 foot-pounds of torque, so don't over torque it. Rope. Feed your rope back through, and then do that same knot that you did earlier. If you want to, you can use some heat and burn the nylon so that the knot stays in place. It's an option if you like to do that. Alright. I think we're pretty much all set with this thing. You can make sure I didn't mar my surface up. Everything looks good. Alright, so my knot's in there. And if you have a cap, you put your cap back on after you cut your rope to length. And then this is the time that you can just do a little test. So you can see that ratchet is coming out. Everything's working good. Alright guys, so that's basically all that's to it. There's no shortcut for putting that spring in. It was kind of hard to film while I did it. I even had a bunch of challenges and cuts and edits. It was popping out on me. But it's doable with one person. Definitely want to have a vise like I have, and some soft material to clamp it so that when you're putting that spring in, it's not able to rotate and reverse all your effort. So clamp it and slowly feed it around, like I said, with your hands switching up to keep it from popping up on you. So there you go, TRX Pullstart refurbishment or replacement of the spring, replacement of the rope. I have a video for the ATC70. I have multiple videos for that one I did a long time ago. I'll put in the link below too, so you can look at that. I find that's a lot easier to put that spring back in the way I do it for the ATC70s. So anyways, thanks for watching guys. Please subscribe if you didn't. Appreciate it.